Wendy's has got a new sandwich on the menu, and its name is the Crispy Panko Fish Sandwich. Wild-caught Alaskan pollock, layered with flaky, crispy panko, dill tartar sauce, and cheese. It's definitely a catch for your taste buds. Limited time only at participating Wendy's.
The following is a Hoop Ball presentation.
Good morning, and welcome to another edition of Hoop Ball's DFS Today. This is your Saturday, March 13th edition. I am your host, Santino Cacone, and I am here with our Saturday guy and Aaron Asmus. How you doing today, Aaron?
Doing great, feeling refreshed after the All-Star break, and this is kind of the first All-Star break where I was actually looking forward to taking a little time off. Just kind of with how the season ended up last year, just kind of feels like we've been doing NBA for constantly nonstop, and it was nice to get a little break, but ready to get back into it.
Yeah, we only had that 70 days off, and then every night after that. So I felt good too. I'm glad we had that restart or that refresher there for a little bit, and now we're getting right back into things. Every game, mainly every slate after this, moving forward is going to be a nice 7, 6, 8 game slate. So I'm going to have a lot of basketball every night.
Perfect.
All right, man. And tonight we have a one early game showdown, but we're going to go right into the main slate for you guys. So we have 7 games on this main slate, and that's where we're going to focus our attention here. And the first game of this main slate kicks off at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll say 3 games at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 at 7:30, 1 at 8, and 2 at 10. So we will have 4 of those before the 8 o'clock hits, so I believe we'll have most of the news hopefully by then. As we're recording this, Joel Embiid is he hurt his knee, left the game. We'll have an MRI tomorrow. They're diagnosing him with a hyperextended knee, so just so we're all there. I don't know if he'll be playing for the foreseeable future, but we'll see. He's not playing today anyway, but just throwing that one out there. For this first game is the Brooklyn Nets at the Detroit Pistons. The Detroit Pistons at the Brooklyn Nets. We have a 228 total for this, and the Nets being an 11.5 favorite at home. On the injury report, we have Spencer Dinwiddie, Kevin Durant, Blake Griffin all out, and Luau Cabarrot as doubtful. On the Pistons side, we have Schroeder, Okafor, and Killian Hayes all out. Let's start with the Detroit side because they are the away team in this one. Where are you looking here? We saw that DeLone Wright came back in the last one. They just traded Svi. I'm assuming Diallo is not going to be available for this, but where would you be looking at on this team?
Yeah, it's kind of tough. You would think with Dennis Smith out and they don't have Svi, who's kind of been a really key rotational player for them this whole season, that we would be able to find some value, but unfortunately, kind of the rest of their main guys are going to be able to play. Jeremy Grant's going to be active. Plumlee, Josh Jackson, DeLon Wright, Sadiq Bey are still all going to play, and they're all priced appropriately, I would say, for their new roles. No one's really an overarching value. And kind of the issue we've had with the Pistons all season is outside of Jeremy Grant, none of them really get above like 28, 27, 28 minutes. The Pistons just seem really unrelenting in overextending anybody outside of Grant. So I think he's probably the one target in this game. But it's still not a great spot because you're looking at the 11.5 point spread and very likely blowout run against the Nets. But in this team context, Grant has still kind of maintained real control over the offense. He's had a 28.9% usage rate, and is averaging 1.13 fantasy points per minute. With the guys they're going to have available for this game, which is good. It's not amazing, though, for 7,700.
Yeah, in this team, I'm looking the first time these guys played against each other, the front court, and Mason Plumlee specifically, he had a monster game. He put up 50 DraftKings points. He played 38 minutes. I don't expect another 38 minutes from him, but I could see playing around 30. And I think even at 6'2", I think he can bring value back here. But if you do think it's a blowout and you think the 11.5 spread is light, you can also look at Isaiah Stewart. He put up 9 points in 9 minutes in the first game, but he's only 3,600, and I really like the front court matchups on this team. With no Svi and no one else. He started in the last one, which was a little bit surprising still, now that everybody's pretty much back. So I don't know where I would want to look elsewhere if I don't want to go Grant because he is 7,700 now. But maybe Wayne Ellington slides back into that starting role, has a few looks here and there, and he's only 4K, and we know he can make threes when he's open. So I don't mind looking at the two front court options and possibly Wayne Ellington, but I would like him only if he starts.
Yeah, it's just kind of all very volatile. If Ellington does start, 4K is not too shabby. And we kind of don't know how they're going to shake out this new rotation. Just Detroit's been a very weird team all year, where we haven't really been where there's been injuries or Blake Griffin getting sat and then coming back, and then they trade Derrick Rose. They haven't really had a chance to just be like, okay, these are our 8-9 guys that we have together for a month, and we can kind of nail down a rotation. So again, I think we could probably find some better spots on this slate than Detroit.
All right, man. And how about on the other side of the ball? We have the Nets. We have their big two. We know that Durant is out. Blake Griffin's not making his debut yet. But where would you look on here?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big news is not really all that much of news, but James Harden has just kind of become the James Harden of old, where at the beginning of the season with the Rockets, he was really struggling and obviously not motivated to play and was just not what we were used to. But I think we can say he's back. He's really confident running the point for this team. Kyrie's been awesome at the off-guard spot against him. I mean, the team has just been offensive rating. It's just been incredible. Over their last 10 games, they have a 123 offensive rating. They're 9-1 real life record. So the offense is rolling. Harden's playing his normal Harden role, and I think you can kind of just consider him on every slate until Durant comes back as a core cash game piece, and it's not going to be incorrect. On this slate, maybe you look elsewhere, but I don't think I can fault you if you want to play Harden at 10.9, which is still very reasonable. And the other guy I was looking at, he's kind of become really popular among season long players, especially. But Nick Claxton at 3,300 has really carved out a kind of a consistent role in that backup center slot. Just going through his game logs: 18 minutes, 16 minutes, 17 minutes, 13 minutes, 15 minutes, 14 minutes, and he's had really up and down production wise. It's 9 points, 27, 7.5 points, 30 points, 27.5 points, 11 points. But that's still pretty interesting, where maybe we can get him up to like 20, 22 minutes in a blowout scenario like this game. And he's looked great. He's looked like a real find for Brooklyn. So I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of try to ramp him up a little bit so they can save Jordan more for the playoffs. And we are struggling a little bit for value on this slate. So while I think I'd rather keep him for tournaments, I wouldn't mind if you went Claxton as a value piece in cash games.
Yeah, and I think he's in play also. Just like the Isaiah Stewart on the other side, if you think this game's a blowout and he's going to see 18 to 24 minutes, that's when you want to target him in blowout scenarios, because Jeff Green is back now, taking a couple extra minutes in the front court, and we could attack him while Durant and Blake Griffin are still out in a game environment which leans heavily to the Nets taking a substantial lead. And then, James Harden as well. He had a down game. He only shot 1 of 8 in the last game from 3, 6 of 16 overall, and he still put up 51 fantasy points. That just tells you this guy is in the zone, and you can go to him at any time.
Yeah, I think it's pretty exciting where I definitely suffered through the Harden at the beginning of the year, just kind of waiting for him to turn it around. And this offense is just going to be really, really scary in the playoffs and kind of moving forward, especially if Harden and Kyrie remain locked in like this, and hopefully Durant can just add that extra dimension.
Yeah, it's going to be, and they're going to pick some people up too, I assume. So we'll see what happens there. On this next game, though, we have the Raptors at the Hornets. A fast-paced 228.5 total here. The Hornets are 2-point home favorites, similar total to the first game. But we have the Raptors have all the usual suspects that missed the last couple: Van Vliet, Siakam, OG. Then we have Malachi Flynn, Patrick McCaw. They're all out again for this one. And then we don't have anybody on the Hornets on the list. They haven't submitted anything yet, but I don't believe they have too many guys. I think everybody's back. We might have Graham still on a minutes limit, but besides that, they don't have an injury report as of yet. So that's good news for them. They were dealing with some stuff for a while now, but let's jump to. I'll jump to with the Raptors here. So we're looking at similar story, a fantastic matchup. We have Kyle Lowry at 8,700 again, and Norm Powell in the 7Ks again. But these two guys, with everybody gone, these two and Chris Boucher are the guys that are controlling everything. And Cody Zeller, Bismack Biyombo aren't the imposing centers that really throw you off of Chris Boucher. So at 6,600, he's another fantastic center option if you're not digging deep there. Norm Powell, 7-3. This dude's just dropping 30 points a game. 3 times in the last 4 games, he dropped over 30 actual points. I mean, you don't want to pay 7-3 for Norm Powell, but especially in a matchup like this guy's just on fire, so you can't fault him going there. And Lowry he's running the offense. He's the only, without Van Vliet there, he's pretty much controlling the offense. I don't want to go to Lowry looking at all the other options, but if you want to make a tournament pivot from other guys, I don't mind that. And then you can look at all the value if you want again. Terrence Davis only played 10 minutes in the last one. Maybe they wanted to ease him back in after that ankle injury right before the break. Bembry, Stan Johnson, these guys, take your shot. They're all playing. Those two guys played a lot of minutes. Stan Johnson played 27, and he didn't do great, but that's still 27 minutes. Bembry played 37 minutes. He put up 22.5 fantasy points. I mean, there's some value on this Raptor squad while 3 of their starters and 2 of their top 3 usage guys are out.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. Boucher is, I think if we could just get him starting, I think he would be the best play on the slate by a significant margin. But there's just always that little inherent risk that him coming off the bench and Nurse keeps him around 25 minutes for some reason. But I don't understand it. Why this guy can't be playing 33 to 35 minutes every single night and just absolutely smashing and just being one of the most productive fantasy point per minute players in the NBA. I think the matchup is tremendous for him. The Hornets really like to go small with PJ at the 5, so I think that lines up better than starting Baines at center, where it actually did make a lot more sense with Boston playing a lot of Thompson and Tice at the 5, and then Atlanta playing Capella at the 5. I think Boucher can match up better with Zeller and PJ Washington. So hopefully we get Boucher in the starting lineup. But I think regardless, he's going to be a core cash game piece for me. And I think same thing with Powell. I agree completely. We don't really want to pay this price tag, but the dude is not leaving the floor, and he's been kind of their main scoring option, I would say, or between him, Lowry, and Boucher. He's just been awesome scoring the ball. I don't really know how else to explain it. I think the one thing to be aware of with him is he's been very, very reliant on the scoring and the efficient shooting to get his fantasy points. So if he has a 7 for 22 game type of game, he's probably not going to pay off this price tag, but it's hard to, you can't really complain. He's getting tremendous shot volume and he's playing in the upper 30s in minutes. And I think you could probably project that for this game again. For 7,300, that's I think that's fairly reasonable. Kyle Lowry, I think, is another guy you should keep it in your cash game consideration. I wouldn't mind playing all three of these guys. I think that's perfectly viable in cash games. Probably not for tournaments because you want to get access to some upside, but I think all three should definitely be in your cash game pool. For right now, I think I'm leading just Chris Boucher from this team, and ancillary guys, I'm not all too interested in.
All right, man. And on the other side of the ball with the Hornets, I'm looking at them, and I just think they're all fairly priced, and you can pretty much match them up with the Raptor guys. Like I think Powell is slightly safer than Rozier at $100 cheaper. Ball and Lowry could be matched up. As good as LaMelo Ball has been, I don't want to pay 8.6 for him. Then you have Hayward, right around that Norm Powell price as well. I think he has the best matchup because there's just really no one on the other team. They're all backups on that forward position. Normal backups are playing forward, power forward, small forward. So don't mind Hayward or PJ Washington here, but I don't think I'm going to gravitate towards this lineup or this side of the ball too much. Maybe if Devontae Graham does not have a minutes limit and we're seeing near 28 to 30 minutes out of him in a super small lineup, I will look to him at 5K, but he's probably going to be limited again. He only played 18 minutes in that first game back after missing nearly a month, so I don't know if he's going to be ready for too much. So I'm probably not going to have too much exposure to this side of the ball.
Yeah, and I think they're getting Devontae Graham back too. They're going to start working him into a bigger role. Well, I don't think that really takes away from LaMelo all that much. It's just another kind of key ball handler that they've been missing for quite a while, that higher usage guy that they're reintroducing to the lineup. And I think the especially Ball's price tag is fairly reasonable. But man, you can go to Kyle Lowry, who's missing a ton of usage guys. De'Aaron Fox is in a later game isn't all that much more expensive and just an even better game environment. I think I want to wait on this Hornets team and let everyone fall $500-600 before reinvesting.
All right, man. Let's jump over to the last game at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and this is the Milwaukee Bucks at the Washington Wizards. The Wizards they currently played tonight on Friday, so they don't have an injury report as of yet. But we also don't have anything submitted from the Bucks because they are fully healthy right now. So that's pretty good to hear also. And we don't have a spread because the Wizards played tonight. So we do not have a spread for them. We'll probably get one in the morning when they get a better idea of who's in and who's out. On this, though, the Wizards are on the front or the back end of a back-to-back. And I forgot to mention that the Raptors are on the front end of a back-to-back from the earlier ones that we said. So let's start with the Bucks side of the ball. This is probably going to be a high-scoring game, might be a blowout. We don't have the spread yet, but I could say about 7 points because the Wizards are home. Probably Wizards are getting 7 at home. But how are you feeling about this side of the ball on the Bucks? Yeah,
I think Giannis is Man, I really do want to see that spread because I think you couldn't really ask for a better matchup for Giannis with, just every Wizards game is just such an up-tempo game context. It just helps everybody who's playing them. The issue, but the Wizards on the second night of the back-to-back, they're getting blown out tonight. It's tough. I think Giannis is going to rate really well in projections. But there's also a couple other guys in some of the later games that I really like as build around spends too. I think he's in this very similar vein to Harden, where it's just never a bad play. I think with Giannis, especially in a game context like this, if the game stays close, he's gonna smash the price tag. And then even if not, even if he only gets 29 minutes and they blow him out, it's likely because Giannis just went completely insane. So I think I would take Giannis slightly ahead of Harden in terms of a cash game build around. I'd be a little wary in tournaments though, for some blowout potential. Everyone else, Chris Middleton, just a little too expensive. Just not all too interested with everyone healthy. I think you could take a chance on Bobby Portis. Thinking maybe they get some blowout run here, but my big decision point is going to be whether to build around Giannis, if it's worth it on this slate.
And that makes sense. And against this Wizards front court, that's where you want to attack the mainly too.
Right.
So I think we're going to get the injury report on the Wizards before the night starts because this game's at 7. This first game for the main slate. So we'll know exactly who's in, who's out, and where the spread's going to be anyway. So if everybody's playing, it makes it a little bit more competitive, and that means Giannis should play a little bit more. And in this matchup, great matchup for him. I also like Bobby Portis at 4-1, and that power forward eligibility is nicer because there are a lot of centers on this slate that are pretty solid. So looking at that power forward eligibility, you can attack that, and at 4-1, another guy who can take advantage of this just bad front court. I would say Brook Lopez, but he can barely take advantage of anything lately, even though the last 2 games that he's played been pretty well. But most of his shots are coming from the outside, so he's not one that's bullying people up front. But that's where I would be looking at the most on this. And if you really wanted, you can possibly look at Drew Holiday at 6'5" now. He did play 25 minutes in the last game, so maybe his minutes are going up and up and up again. But he just hasn't shown it yet to where I can fully trust that.
Yeah, and I think we're kind of getting to the point of the season too where we still have half the season left, but just the real life standings watch where the Bucks are currently 3rd, and then there's a big gap with between the 4th and 7th place teams in the East. They're 2 games behind the Sixers. They're a game and a half behind the Nets currently. So I would think they want to keep pace with those teams, and probably by around the time playoffs come around, maybe we'll start to see fans back in the stands again. So home court might actually matter a little bit more than it did during last year's playoffs, or teams might care a little bit more. So yeah, that does make me a little more bullish on Giannis, where right now they still need to fight for standings. Whereas last year they were kind of just coasting towards the end of the season, which I think is important. I think they'll want to extend their guys maybe just a little bit more, just so they're keeping pace at least.
Right, man. But how are you feeling about this other side of the ball in the Wizards? And I forgot to mention that Davis Bertans, he left this game on Friday early with a calf injury, and he did not return. So that is something to keep an eye on. I would assume he's closer to doubtful than probable for this game, just because it's the back end of a back-to-back. But that opens up some minutes for some other guys here. And where would you be looking at on the Wizard side of the ball?
Yeah, I think Danny Avdija is pretty interesting at 4K. I'm not all that interested in center roulette. I had to do that on the 2-game slate, and it was just awful trying to Robin Lopez and Mo Wagner, and God, never again. So I think you largely should ignore those guys, and I don't think Rui maybe gets a little more secure in his minutes. It's been a little disheartening seeing the 25, 32, 25, 25. 26 over his last 5 games. So maybe you get him a little more secure, but then it's also not a good spot in the slightest against, the Giannis, Brook Lopez defensive front line for the Bucks. And in general, it's a big slate. I guess, Denny is cheap enough at 4K where you can justify it as a value play. But, man, this team is just so tough when Russ and Beal are playing, and it feels like you're just throwing darts at any of the ancillary guys where you're just hoping the guy you picked happens to get a spiked game with Russ and Beal on the court.
Yeah, I'm looking at them, and I don't really want to touch anybody on this team at the moment.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll see what happens with the starting lineup, but currently I'm probably going to shy away from them, looking at the matchup, looking at the possible blowout scenario, and just everybody outside of Westbrook and Beal is hard to play anyway, and I think we have other options that we don't have to attack them here.
Yeah, I mean, if Denny does end up starting, and I think that would probably be the only spot, but just not a good game context, and just things we should generally be avoiding when building lineups.
This next one at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is the highest spread of the night. We have the Kings traveling to Atlanta to take on the Hawks. It is a 239.5 over-under, and the Hawks are 4-point home favorites. On the injury report, we have Chris Dunn, DeAndre Hunter, Cam Reddish all out, and Okongwu as probable. We have the Kings, we have Woodward, Whiteside, and Medu as out. On the King side, I think you mentioned it before, Fox is in a fantastic matchup, only 9-2. He's coming off a 64-point game before the break and a 56-point game after the break, back-to-back 30-point actual scoring games, and nearly 10.5 assists. So he's been on fire those last 2 games, and 7.5 rebounds.
Yeah.
Against Trae Young's defense, against this Hawks team, both teams like to play fast. He's squarely in play for me. He's at a really good price tag. We mentioned a couple guys around this price tag. This is just very good matchup. The highest total on the night that we have so far. We just don't have 2 of the 7 games. And this game leads the second highest that we have by a big 6.5 points. So it's easily the highest one we have, and I think Fox makes for a really good play here. Then looking at everybody else, I think I wanted to say Halliburton also, but he only played 18 minutes against Houston. I know that game got way out of hand. Maybe they didn't want to play him too much, but he did miss a couple weeks, so maybe he's just not ready to play an extended minutes. And I don't know if I can go there without knowing he's ready to play extended minutes. But I think Barnes makes for a good matchup here. There's not the wings on Atlanta are kind of beat up right now. He's playing the 3 and the 4. Gallo's not a great defender. Bogdanovic against his old team's not a great defender. He is in play for me as well, near at 6-8. And then I'll decide what happens with Halliburton when I get more news. And this game starts at 7:30, so I believe we should have the news on that fairly earlier. But I think Fox is a guy who's definitely in play. Barnes is one for me, but he won't be like a lock and load type of guy. And Halliburton I'm waiting on. Outside of that, I'm not really looking at anybody else.
Yeah. The thing, Walton is kind of just in desperation mode, just to try to keep his job pretty much every game, and he's just riding his top 6 guys as hard as he can. So the minutes workload for everybody, for Fox, Barnes, Buddy Hield, Rashawn Holmes, and I'm not worried about Hallie. I think he'll get back to 30 minutes relatively soon. And then Bagley, those six guys are, that's where a majority of the production is going to come with the Kings. The issue is they all kind of take turns outside of Fox really going off, and they're all kind of priced appropriately for that locked in workload, which makes it a little tough to choose. I think Barnes and Buddy Hield have the most secure minutes of the ancillary guys off Fox. I think Halliburton and Holmes are two of the better fantasy point per minute guys, but there's always a little foul trouble risk with Holmes, and then like you said, Halliburton maybe has a little bit of a minutes restriction coming back from injury, and then Bagley is is the exact definition of inconsistent playing time, where he'll have 19 and 8 through 3 quarters and then not see any fourth quarter run. It's just absolutely maddening coaching from Walton. But yeah, I wouldn't mind if you played any of these six guys in this game and in this game context.
Johnsonville sausage strips are strips of sausage that look and cook like bacon. They come in amazing flavors like original, maple, or chorizo. Now you can transform your BLT into an SLT or turn your bacon cheeseburger into a chorizo cheeseburger. It's not bacon. It's Johnsonville sausage strips. And it's a meaty miracle. Find it by the bacon, even though it's sausage.
Right, awesome. And on the other side of the ball, I think Capella's finally dropped a little. He was getting crazy territory in that mid 8.5, that mid 8.5K range. I think 7.5. We even saw last game he put up nearly 44 fantasy points. This is good where we can play him and bring back value, but I do think there are a lot of solid center options on the slate. So if you wanted to go a little bit cheaper, don't mind it there. John Collins is in a good spot against Marvin Bagley, a guy who has been one of the worst defenders at power forward in the league. I think a couple weeks ago he was rated 56th out of 76 qualifying power forwards. So very good matchup for John Collins here. And at 6.5, I like that matchup or that price tag as well. We already mentioned a couple guys around that price tag. So we do have options in that lower mid range there. I don't hate Trae Young, but I think that we talked about like a paying up for a Giannis, paying up for a Harden. Fox on the other side of the ball with $600 cheaper. I don't know how much Trae Young I'll have with the options there. And then we got a couple other guys later on to go there. So while Trae Young, don't hate the play, he's just not going to be one that I'm going to fully attack. I think I'm going to take advantage of some of these other guys that are a little cheaper in this awesome matchup. And then I'm looking at Bogdanovic. I know he had a very brutal 0 for 6 shooting game. He only played 17 minutes in the last one. They still don't have Reddish. They still don't have Hunter. They still need him to play more minutes. And this is the perfect opportunity against his former team to have his first good game pretty much all season, or since the new year, I should say. So I do like him at 3,800. It's about time that he fits into this team at some point. Gallinari has been hit or miss, mostly miss. I think it's Bogdanovic is. I just have a hunch that this revenge game narrative is something that gets him up and gets him ready for this game. And I know Tony Snell hit a game winner, but he's one of the worst players in the league. I just can't get behind him.
Yeah. I think you nailed it. I have a little more interest in Trae Young. I think the Kings defense, after their mirage of a 7-1 record over that 8-game span, has fallen off a cliff again. They're back to being below 120 defensive rating in their last 10 games, and this is kind of a sneaky up-tempo spot for the Hawks, who have been 29th in pace over their last 10 games compared to 17th for them for the season. So they've kind of really slowed things down, while the Kings have kind of maintained a top 10 pace throughout their last 10 games and throughout the season. So I think he's perfectly acceptable as, a cash building block. The Kings guard line can't stop anybody, and you are getting a little bit of a discount off of Harden, off of Giannis, where your roster build will be a little bit different, and you can get some pretty solid upgrades on a slate that's really lacking in cheap value. Bogdanovic, I think, is going to be a really popular value play. He might be one of the more popular plays on the slate. It's revenge. He's going to have revenge in his heart against the Kings because that's just how it always is, right? And yeah, I think Clint Capella, 7,500 is you nailed it. He's finally back to playable levels, and we get a really good up-tempo spot for him, and it's a really good buy level opportunity for Capella, where I think a 20 rebound game is well within reach in this spot. So I like this game a ton. I think it's very game stackable. I like the idea of playing Trae Young and De'Aaron Fox as building blocks and kind of just really differentiating off the Harden Giannis tier. And I think the rest of the guys are fairly priced, but maybe just a little bit under where we expect them to be in a game environment like this. And there's just some horrible games on this slate, and a few others with just really massive spreads. So it can't be underrated too that this is only a 3.5 point spread with this massive game total. So yeah, play this game. I'll play a lot of this.
And the Hawks are on the front end of a back-to-back. I forgot to mention that one. But now let's go to the next game. This is the only game that's at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The next two are at 10 p.m. And this is out of the 5 spreads that we have, of the 5 of the 7. This is the second highest of the night. It's a 233 over-under. And the away team, it's the Blazers at the Wolves, and the Blazers are 4.5 point road favorites in this one. For the injury report, we have Malik Beasley, Jordan McLaughlin, D'Angelo Russell all out for the Wolves, and Jarrett Culver as doubtful. For the Blazers, we have the usual suspects: Nurkic, McCollum, Giles, and Collins all out. And both of these teams are on the front ends of the back-to-back, and interestingly, they're both playing again against each other on Sunday night. So this is the first of a repeat back-to-back for both teams. And starting with the Blazers, man, what are you looking for on the Blazers side of the ball? I know we pretty much know what we have in them with all these 4 main guys out. Nurkic is getting closer. McCollum is getting closer a little bit as well. But everything's going to change when they come back. But what do you like in this matchup right now?
I think I like this game a little more for tournaments than for cash game builds. It's pretty hard to argue that Dame is not worth his 10.7K price tag, but I just have a huge issue paying that when he's so close to a Giannis or a Harden, who aren't nearly as scoring dependent as Dame is. It's and kind of what I like about going down to Trae or going down to Fox is you're getting significant salary savings over the upper 10K guys, whereas if you play Dame over the other 2 guys, you're just hoping he outscores James Harden and Giannis, which is it's just not a bet I really like to make on most slates. So I think the way I want to attack this game, and I don't really play too many tournament teams these days, but I think I want to do a game stack with Damian and Cat as the building blocks, and then just moving on from there and getting really pretty low ownership, but still getting real upside in one of the better game environments and one of the closer spreads on the slate.
Awesome. And yeah, I don't. This team and Lillard would be just a tournament pivot for me if I was doing what you were talking about. Outside of him, it is a really good matchup. Maybe I would look at Robert Covington at 5'6", but not in love with the rest of the matchups here. Just the other pieces on the Blazers haven't been too consistent, and you can't really. It's hard to trust them and go with them on a given night. And the Wolves are coming off their first win and a blowout win the other night, and now they're playing at home. So we'll see if something has changed on their side. But how are you feeling on the Wolves side of the ball?
I think Towns is just an extraordinary tournament play while he's below 10K. If you kind of look at the Minnesota game logs, it's like there just hasn't been a spot, or there's been very few spots where it just hasn't been just an insane blowout. And when he has gotten a chance to get, even just low 30s minutes, like the entire offense is running through him, and he's getting a ton of playmaking responsibilities, and he's getting between 15 and 20 shots every single game. So I think 9-6 is just awesome price tag, and you couldn't ask for a better matchup against Cantor. I think Cantor's going to struggle quite a bit in this matchup, being forced away from the rim and forced to defend Towns on the perimeter. I'm kind of talking myself into it, but I think Towns can be really kind of like a really great secondary piece as in cash game builds. It's just so cheap for the upside he can bring if he gets to 33, 34 minutes.
Yeah, and he's going against Cantor, so he can't eat in that matchup too. And at under 10K, he's definitely an option in your player pool. I know he's coming off a few just rough games, but like you said, most of these games have been blowouts. Look at the last close game was against the Knicks, 4-point game. Outside of that, all double-digit games, and that's putting it lightly for the most part. They've been like 20 to 3rd last game, and then they won. The first game they won in a while, they win by 30. Go figure. But I think at 9-6, he definitely makes for a guy who can enter your player pool. Then you're looking at everybody else. Rubio's not a scorer, especially at this stage of his career. I would have liked to attack the starting point guard against the Blazers in this one, but I don't love him. I think you can look at Noel, but after dropping 28 points, he might have a bit higher ownership, or I don't know if he can do that again. He made most of his shots. 4-6 is not a bad price tag to see that through, though. And like Naz Reid at 39, even though he's playing behind Towns, he's still been pretty productive. And I know most of them have been blowouts, like we just mentioned, but even in 16 minutes, this guy's been bringing back value. So I don't hate it there, but I do think we have better options. And just if you do game stack this type of guy, this game, that would be where I would look. But I'm looking at a guy like Jaden McDaniels. Someone's taking over this power forward spot, and he staked his claim in the first game after the All-Star break here. He didn't start, but he severely outplayed Vanderbilt. Layman moved more towards small forward. Hernan Gomez didn't touch the court until late. Okogie is not that good. So I don't mind looking at McDaniels here at 3,700 and what looks to be a solid matchup for him as well.
Yeah, I mean, just the issue with those ancillary guys is I just don't know. It's very much like throwing darts. It's, McDaniels is at two pretty good games with bigger minutes, but, if Vanderbilt starts and he plays well, it's going to be Vanderbilt getting, the 25 to 30 minutes in that slot. I think Anthony Edwards at 6,500, just his usage rate has been stupidly good. If you just take a look at the field goal attempts, 20, 22, 22, 23, 22, it's crazy. This dude just is unconscious and is willing to launch with no regard for backboards or building houses or anything. Just I think he's squarely in play. I think he compares pretty well to the guys in the Hawks and the Kings game. I think he's definitely a little more risky because he's really tied to can he somewhat score efficiently, but I think he also has the upside that some of those other guys don't, just with the pure shot volume he's getting at this price tag.
All right, man, I like it. And then let's flip on over to the next game, the first game at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is the Indiana Pacers at the Phoenix Suns. We have a spread for this one, and this is by far the lowest one of the night that we have. The Suns are 5.5 point home favorites, and the total is 219. On the injury report, we have also the Pacers are on the back end of a back-to-back, so we don't have anybody for them on the injury report, but we do have some guys for the Suns, and that is that Cameron Johnson is out, and Booker is probable for this one. He played in the last one. It looks like he's going to play again in this one. And I will say what we do know for the Pacers is that Caris LeVert is going to make his Pacer debut in this one.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome for him. Feel-good story. Saved his life to get traded. So that's fantastic.
Yes,
it's insane. I never heard of that before. But I'll jump into the Pacers side on this one. Looking at everybody, knowing that they're going to integrate Caris LeVert back in, or not back, but into the lineup for the first time, I really don't want to touch anybody on this team. Usually when you're integrating people into the lineup that haven't played, traded for, we saw it even with the Nets, with everybody, they don't come out the same that they were doing before. I don't know how much LeVert is actually going to play in this one. They didn't give a limit yet. I'm assuming we're going to have, he's just going to get eased in. But even that, it disrupts the flow when you start playing with someone new, and then you're playing against the Suns, who are, as I repeat every time, a top 5 defense and the second slowest team in the league. Just not a team that I really want to attack at these prospective price tags.
Yeah, I mean, just don't do it. Like, even if Caris wasn't coming back, and I imagine it's probably only going to be 15, 20 minutes, something along those lines. But that's still integrating a high usage guy for 15 to 20 minutes. That's not going to Sabonis or Brogdon or TJ McConnell or any of those guys. It's just not good DFS theory. Like the Suns are an awesome team. They're an awesome defense. We don't have any injuries to take advantage of on the Pacers side. Kind of everything that we should be looking for a good DFS play. This game has none of it. Low total. It's an easy avoid.
Awesome. And then flipping on over to the other side, I'm in a similar boat. I know Booker just dropped a big game there. But I'm looking at all the price tags, and I'm not, as they usually are, they're fairly priced out. Ayton is only 6'3", but he's just been such a letdown. I don't know where I want to look on this team. Maybe Mikal Bridges, but I'm going to pass pretty much on this entire game.
Yeah, there's just no reason to do it unless we get some. We can't even depend on news, really, because this is just one of the few late games, and most of the games will long have started if we get some random news. And we've said it all season with the Suns. They're death by 1,000 cuts. They very much spread the ball around. They spread the usage around. The Pacers are a really good defensive team. Neither of these teams play fast. The Suns are ridiculously slow. The Pacers are kind of middle of the pack. We can do better. I even in tournaments, if you're thinking low owned, it's just there's just such little upside. You're just kind of throwing darts with this game.
All right, man, and let's get to the last game of the night. This is another one with no spread. We have the Nuggets on the back end of a back-to-back on this one, but we have the Dallas Mavericks traveling to the Denver Nuggets. And on the injury report, again, there's no one on the Nuggets side because they played tonight. But JaMychal Green, Gary Harris, Zeke Nanji, and RJ Hampton all missed Friday's game, so that's something to keep an eye on. We saw Paul Millsap and Campazzo make their returns. Paul Millsap, another guy, keep your eye on him. He just returned after a solidly long absence. He might miss again. He missed pretty much a month of the season, so I don't know if he's going to play on the second night of a back-to-back. On the Dallas side, we have no one are just Tyrell Terry is out with illness, and everybody else is currently off the list. We saw Luka, Porzingis. They missed the last game. They should be good for this one. But start on the Mavs side of the ball, man. Can you attack these guys? They're going against the Nuggets team that are on the second leg of a back-to-back. Do you feel comfortable going with Luka, who's priced out just like the other big guys on here, or Porzingis in a what looks to be a solid matchup?
Yeah, I think Luka wins the upper 10K battle for me. Just because I think the game environment is going to be by far the most competitive. We don't have a line for this game, but it'd be hard to imagine it's more than like 3 or 4 points in either direction. And he's just a little bit cheaper too. So I mean, you're getting $300-$400 off Harden and Giannis. And it's just a good spot. Luka and Kristaps are both really well rested. They both play better when they're both active. And I think the profile of Luka just really, really fits what I'm looking for on this slate, especially. So I haven't quite decided if I want to play one of those upper 10K guys, but if I had to rank it, I think it would be Luka, Giannis, and then Harden. But again, these 3 guys, along with Jokic, are probably all the best fantasy DFS fantasy players of anybody, and it's just not wrong. I don't think if you play any single one of them on pretty much any given slate. It's just such thin margins, but I like the spot for Luka. He should be really well rested. I like the really competitive game environment. Neither team really plays great defense. Both teams are really good offensively. I think he's the one guy I'm looking at on this Dallas team. The rest of the guys are just a little bit too priced up for the games that Kristaps and Luka have missed.
Yeah, and if you're looking at Luka, he's averaged in the 2 meetings against the Nuggets this year, nearly 83 fantasy points. So he's had himself a very good series, averaging 36 points, 10 rebounds, 14 assists. Some of that's been without guys in the lineup, but that's just fantastic, fantastic numbers to look at. And I think you can't go wrong with Luka. Looking at everybody else, if they are healthy, and we won't know until later, so it's not something that we can lock in before all the other games. But if they're all healthy, they're all kind of priced to where they had those good games without Porzingis and Luka in there last time.
Right.
Like Brunson's nearly 6K, Jay Rich 5.3, Hardaway 5.2. I don't mind Hardaway in this type of environment, but I think there's so many other options out there, even in that 6K range, if we can get up there, that I just much prefer. But if you're in that 5.2, I don't mind going Hardaway. But outside of that, I'm not. It's just the 2 guys that get so much usage in Luka and Porzingis, so everybody else takes the back seat over here.
Yeah, agreed.
But how you feeling about this Nugget side of the ball, man? I know you mentioned Jokic a little bit, but can you look at anybody else?
I don't think so. They're getting a little bit healthier. They're getting a couple guys back. Paul Millsap came back. I guess. I mean, just Porter's all the way up to 7K. Murray's at 8.2. I think I'd spend up for LaMelo. I'd spend up for Lowry. I'd spend up for Fox. Kind of in that general price range rather than going to Murray. And then all the rest of the ancillary guys, as long as Jokic and Murray and Porter are all healthy, it's just not a good usage investment with anyone else. So I think I would look at Jokic. I think Murray will probably be a lower owned tournament guy you can go to, but again, I prefer the guys that I just stated. Porter's just a little too expensive at 7K. So I think it's just Jokic.
Yeah, and I'm looking at him too. Everybody's kind of priced up. I know Paul Mills. We're still looking at Millsap, Harris, and Green to see if they're going to be available for this one. But I think everybody's a slightly priced up. And Jokic, I probably won't play him too much, just knowing that I do like Luka more. I do like Harden more, possibly like Giannis more. So I won't have too much exposure to him there, even though he's not a bad play ever. I just prefer some other guys. There's just too many guys over 10K, and we can't play them all here. So probably not going to have much exposure on this side of the ball as well. And even though this is what looks to be a really solid matchup and competitive playoff environment game here.
Yeah, said it.
Before we head on out of here, I do want to ask some of our listeners asked us to do this a couple times. I've been trying to get it in there, but let's break down some of your favorite plays here, man. And if you want to take a second to think of like a player from each tier that you're just very high on, well, okay. We can do that. We'll throw out. I think you kind of hit a couple people here, but who would be one of your favorite spend ups here?
Yeah, I think it's the list that I just said. I think it's Luka, then Giannis, and then Harden, and then Jokic in that order. If we're going down a little bit cheaper, if you want, I would start with I love Towns at 9,600. I kind of talking through that, I was just noticing, holy cow! Like I think that tag is just awesome. It's just way too cheap for the upside he possesses. He's normally a guy we're kind of paying that 10.7K price tag for. So if he gets to 33, 34 minutes, I think he's just an outstanding play. I really like him. Fox at 9,200, I think is outstanding. So I would lean those two kind of in the 9K range. I think you can go to, let's see, who did I? Chris Boucher is the gold star play of the day. 6,600. I think there's a decent chance he starts if my logic is correct, where the Hornets, they play way smaller than the Celtics or the Hawks do, and I think he matches up better with PJ at the 5 than Baines would. So I'm hoping for it that we get Boucher starting, but I think regardless, he's just. They
usually start Zeller, so I think Boucher would come off the bench, but I would rather have him off the bench personally, because I think that drives his ownership a little lower than normal. When people see that he's starting, it's like, oh, we have to go Chris Boucher, and I think he's one of my favorite, if not favorite, plays around that price range too, in that mid range that you'd say, and at 6'6", I think that's awesome there. I'd prefer him to come off the bat. I still think he's going to see 30 minutes in this matchup either way, just because they're so beat up. They have to play him. They can't really throw him off the bench here. So not throw him off, keep him on the bench here. So I think he's going to have to play regardless.
But what worries me a little bit though with Boucher is they've been willing to play Baines and Boucher together the last two games against the Hawks and Boston, which makes sense because both those teams, generally they have a true center on the floor at all times, and they kind of have a bigger power forward that Boucher can match up with. So that worries me a little bit with the small ball. If Boucher is not getting that 30-minute mark, if he's down to 25, 26, he can still get there, but just always creeping in the back of my mind a little bit, unfortunately.
And who would be your favorite value plays on the night?
Oh man, let's see. I think Bogdan on the Hawks, 3,800, is going to be kind of a core cash game guy. Shooting guard, small forward, viability. The Hawks wings are still missing. It's against the Kings defense. It's really hard to pass that value up. Man, other than that, there's just not a whole lot of great cheap value that you can feel really confident in at this point, which I think kind of makes playing like starting your teams with a Towns and a Fox over the super expensive guys makes some sense. Just because I don't see very much down here that I would really want to put into my cash games. We talked about Nick Claxton a little bit at 3,300, but he takes up a center slot, which isn't ideal. Same thing with Isaiah Stewart at 3,600. Man, I don't know. Other than Bogdan, there's just not a whole lot of good value down here.
Right? Yeah, I'm with you. I like Bogdanovic here. I like McDaniels, and then I don't mind looking at some of this Raptor value that I think is still there. I don't think they have huge upside, but I don't think they kill you if you throw them in your lineup as well. But I do really like Bogdanovic and McDaniels on the under 4K with some other options, but those would be my two guys that I lean the most towards. All right, man. And do you want to say anything before we head on out of here? Any last minute things you want to throw in there?
Yeah, I think kind of the big lesson I found myself over the All-Star break is don't be afraid to take a break. It really does help if you feel like you're in like a big losing streak or can't seem to get the right lineup or the right construction. That taking a day off, decompressing from building lineups and listening to content and throwing your head against a wall it's just so beneficial for your mentality when you do come back, and it kind of feels like a fresh game, fresh gambling all over again, and it just breaks up the monotony of every slate kind of blending together and feeling the same. And something I'm going to try to implement is just at least take one day off a week and just getting that reset. So hopefully my other 6 days are just that much better.
All right, man. And you heard it there. And follow Aaron on Twitter. It's at AsmaSports. And you can follow me on Twitter at Santino Cacone. And we will catch you guys again next week. Tomorrow we have, I believe, Mike and Chuck on for the Sunday slates. And thank you guys for tuning in as always. And we will see you again next week. Have a good one.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.